Imagine waking up one morning with this weird gut feeling that the life you've been living isn't really yours. Every choice you've made, every belief you cling to, even the dreams pushing you forward, maybe they didn't come from the real you deep down. Instead, they might be shaped by expectations, habits you picked up, or those sneaky influences all around you. Think about it. How much of who you are is the true you, and how much is just a mask you've pieced together from outside pressure? Ever feel like you're just playing a part, following a script written by society, your upbringing, or those quiet fears nagging in the back of your mind? Today, we're diving into one of Carl Jung's deepest ideas. Life doesn't really kick off until you find the real you. But what does finding yourself even mean? Is it just about figuring out who you are on the surface? Or is it a bigger, life-changing journey? Stick with me, because as we peel back the hidden forces shaping your identity, you'll see why so many never truly get there, and how you can break free. The last big takeaway we'll hit, it's the most powerful one. It could flip not just how you see yourself, but how you roll with the world. Carl Gustav Jung was a trailblazer in deep psychology, a thinker who went way beyond the usual mind theories to explore the wild, hidden corners of the unconscious. Unlike a lot of psychologists back then, Jung didn't think mental health was just about fitting into society's mold. Nope, he saw it as a journey toward individuation, becoming your most authentic self. Here's the catch, though. Most folks never even start that trip. They're stuck in a version of themselves molded by outside vibes. They live by others' expectations, never asking if the life they're leading matches who they really are. They chase approval, thinking happiness comes from likes, success, or blending in. But deep down, there's this quiet unease, a nagging sense that something's missing. Jung believed real life starts when we quit running from ourselves. But before we dig into what finding yourself really looks like, we got to get why so many never do it. From the day we're born, we're shaped. We get names, identities, and ready-made roles. We're taught what's okay, what's not, what gets a pat on the back, and what gets a slap. This happens so slowly and quietly that we hardly ever question it. We adapt, we fit in, and over time, we learn to bury parts of ourselves that don't match what others want. Think back to your childhood. Were there times you let yourself shine, only to get shut down? Maybe someone told you to get real, stop being too sensitive, or that some feelings and dreams didn't fit. Little by little, you learn to hide those pieces, tuck them away where no one could see. And that's how you started building a mask, what Jung called the persona. The persona is the face you show the world. It helps you get by, handle relationships, and earn a spot at the table. But here's the snag. The more you lean into that mask, the more you drift from the real you. You start thinking you are the mask, forgetting there's something deeper underneath. Then there's the flip side, the shadow. If the persona is what you put out there, the shadow is what you keep locked away. It's everything you've pushed down or ignored. Your fears, unspoken wishes, weak spots, and even hidden strengths. And here's where it gets wild. The shadow doesn't just vanish. It doesn't disappear because you look the other way. Instead, it works behind the scenes, tweaking your thoughts, actions, and even how you feel. The parts of you that you shove aside don't just go poof. They pop up in sneaky ways, often through something called projection. Ever really disliked someone without knowing why? Or gotten super triggered by something someone else does? Jung thought that when other people's traits bug you, it's often because those same traits are hiding in your own shadow. But what if I told you that inside that shadow lies the key to figuring out the real you? Those bits you've buried and ignored aren't your enemies. They're the missing pieces to your wholeness. Jung's big aha moment was this. Growing psychologically isn't about wiping out the shadow. It's about bringing it in. It's about diving into your unconscious, facing what you've denied. And when you do, you tap into a deep well of personal power, authenticity, and freedom. That's where the real journey starts. Ready to face the truth of who you are and smash the illusions holding you back. Because what's coming next will shake up everything you thought you knew about yourself and open the door to a life that's truly yours. Most people go through life thinking they've got themselves figured out. They define themselves by their name, job, culture, or past. But what if I told you your identity is way more complicated than that? That you think you might just be a surface-level sketch, a slice of a much deeper reality. Carl Jung believed every person carries a hidden world, a vast, intricate inner landscape packed with forgotten memories, buried emotions, unvoiced dreams, and untapped potential. The trick to really finding yourself isn't building a new identity. It's digging up what's been buried inside. Take a second to reflect. Ever felt this deep, hard to explain pull for something more, like a bigger version of you is waiting to break out? That's not just your imagination. It's your unconscious mind nudging you towards something greater. Jung called this process individuation. He believed true fulfillment doesn't come from bowing to outside expectations, but from blending every part of yourself. The good, the bad, the light, and the dark. But before you can blend those pieces, you've got to face them. And that's where most people hit the brakes. Why? Because looking at yourself is tough. It means staring at parts of your personality you've ignored forever, questioning old beliefs, tackling fears, and wrestling with the inner conflicts that built your life. Think about it. How often do you dodge silence? How often do you distract yourself with work, social media, entertainment, or anything to avoid sitting alone with your thoughts? That nonstop distraction isn't random. It's a shield, a way to dodge the big questions bubbling underneath. But no matter how hard you try to sidestep them, those hidden parts don't vanish. They show up out of nowhere, through anxiety, self-sabotage, unsatisfying relationships, or that lingering feeling of being lost. Jung believed your unconscious is always chatting with you, but we've trained ourselves to tune it out. Start paying attention, though, and you'll spot patterns. You'll see how your deepest scars steer your choices, how buried desires shape your moves, and how the stuff you fear most often holds the biggest lessons. Let's look at a simple but powerful example: fear of rejection. A lot of people live scared of being judged or ditched. They hunt for approval, avoid fights, and bury their real thoughts to keep the peace. But where's that fear coming from? Is it really about what others think, or does it trace back to something deeper, like an old wound, a childhood moment when you felt unseen or unworthy? Jung would say this fear isn't just a feeling. It's a shadow piece that hasn't been owned. And until you bring it into the light, it'll keep pulling the strings behind the scenes. Here's the crazy part. When you finally face those hidden bits, they lose their grip on you. Picture this: living without the fear of judgment, speaking your truth without hesitation, making calls based on what vibes deep inside, not what others want. That's the power of individuation. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about stepping into more of the real you. But how do you start? How do you uncover the unconscious forces running your life? Jung thought one of the best ways to tap into the unconscious is through symbols, dreams, and some serious self-reflection. He saw dreams as messages from your deeper self, spilling hidden truths about your psyche. He also stressed creative outlets, art, writing, music, as ways to dig into and blend the unconscious. But the biggest step? Awareness. The moment you start questioning your thoughts, reactions, and core beliefs, you're already on the path to change. The moment you stop dodging discomfort and face it with curiosity, you start reclaiming the real you. Here's the deal. Most people live their whole lives as strangers to themselves. They follow the roads laid out for them, never realizing they can pick a different path. They bury their true nature, not knowing their biggest strength is embracing all they are. But you don't have to be one of them. You've got the power to break free from the illusions holding you back, shed the layers of conditioning and fear that kept you from living fully, and step into the fullness of who you are, unafraid and unapologetic. In the next part, we're going deeper into the hidden archetypes inside you. These ancient patterns buried in your psyche hold the key to unlocking your biggest potential. What you're about to learn might flip how you see yourself forever. If finding yourself were as easy as making a choice, everyone would already be living in sync with their true nature. But as we've seen, it's way more complex. It's not just picking who you want to be. It's uncovering the forces that shaped you, facing the parts you've ditched, and weaving them into a real, whole identity. But here's a question. Why are we drawn to certain habits, desires, or fears? Why do we repeat the same slip-ups or fall into the same ruts, even when we try to switch it up? Carl Jung's answer was a game-changer. He believed every human carries universal patterns, deep psychological blueprints that tweak our thoughts, feelings, and actions in ways we don't always get. He called them archetypes. Jung said these archetypes are ancient collective images stored in what he dubbed the collective unconscious, a shared psyche level we all inherit from our ancestors' experiences. These archetypes shape who we are, our relationships, and how we view the world. Think about the stories that we echoed through history. The hero's quest, the wise guide, the dark villain, the innocent kid. These characters pop up in myths, religions, books, even dreams. They're not just made up, they're psychological forces living in all of us. And whether we know it or not, they're always at play in our lives. Take the hero archetype, for instance. That's the part of you craving purpose, feeling a call to something bigger. It's the piece that wants to tackle obstacles, grow stronger, and level up to a better you. But this archetype doesn't roll solo. It's always paired with the shadow. As we talked about, the shadow holds the repressed, hidden stuff, your fears, weak spots, and even untapped potential. In myths, the hero has to face the shadow, often pictured as a monster, foe, or epic challenge, before they can truly evolve. Now, let's bring it to real life. Ever had a moment where you knew you needed a change, but something inside fought back? A time you could have stepped into a bigger version of yourself, but fear, doubt, or self-sabotage held you down. That's the hero versus shadow showdown playing out inside. The mistake most people make is trying to squash the shadow instead of getting it. But Jung believed real transformation happens when you blend the shadow, not by ditching it, but by learning from it. Say you wrestle with self-doubt. Instead of ignoring it or acting like it's not there, Jung would nudge you to ask, where's this doubt coming from? Is it really yours? Or did past experiences, society's expectations, or other people's voices plant it? What's it teaching you? Could it be that inside your doubt hides a strength, like humility, self-reflection, or seeing things from all angles? When you start viewing your struggles not as flaws, but as whispers from the unconscious, everything shifts. But archetypes go beyond just the hero and shadow. There are other forces inside us, each with a role in shaping who we are. One of the heaviest hitters is the anima and animus archetype. Jung thought every guy has a hidden feminine side, the anima, and every woman has a hidden masculine side, the animus. This isn't about physical gender. It's about balancing energies within. The anima stands for intuition, emotion, creativity, and a deep tie to the unconscious. The animus brings logic, structure, discipline, and assertiveness. When these two vibes are in sync, you feel whole. But when they're off, inner chaos kicks in. For example, a guy who shuts out his anima might struggle to express feelings, seeing vulnerability as a weakness. A woman who ditches her animus might hesitate to take charge, feeling unsure about owning her life. But when you embrace these energies instead of burying them, they turn into a massive source of strength. And that leads us to one of Jung's biggest truths. To find yourself, you've got to embrace every piece of you. The light and the dark, the masculine and feminine, the known and the unknown. Individuation isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming whole. But there's one last puzzle piece, one final revelation that ties it all together, and it might just be the most powerful. The biggest block to finding yourself isn't just fear, self-doubt, or outside conditioning. It's something deeper, woven into how we even see reality. In the next part, we're uncovering it. What you're about to hear will challenge everything you thought you knew about yourself, and it might just change your life for good. Throughout this journey, we've unpacked the hidden forces shaping your identity. The mask you wear, the shadow you push down, and the archetypes steering your thoughts and actions. But now we've got to face the deepest illusion of all, the illusion of the self. Most people roll through life assuming their identity is set in stone, that they're a single, unchanging me moving through time, carved by memories and experiences. But Jung, along with some heavy-hitting philosophers and mystics, got this radical idea. The self isn't fixed. It's fluid, always shifting, and way bigger than we've been told. What if the you identify with right now is just a piece of something massive? What if the person you think you are is one expression of a limitless consciousness that's been evolving for centuries through inherited wisdom and lived moments? Jung explored this through the concept of the true self, not the little ego self clinging to labels and fears, but the full you beyond the illusions of identity. This realization is both freeing and freaky because it means everything you believed you are, all the fears, limits, stories you tell yourself, isn't the whole truth. It's just a construct, a temporary setup built by your mind. And here's the most mind-blowing truth. You're not just some lone soul drifting through life. You're a vast, connected field of consciousness, carrying the wisdom of generations, the depth of the unconscious, and a potential for change beyond imagination. But if that's real, why do we feel so boxed in? Why do we deal with pain, doubt, and fear? The answer is in the ego. The ego isn't the bad guy. It's just the part of your mind that creates a sense of separation. The voice in your head saying, "This is me, and this isn't me." It builds walls, draws lines, and keeps you tied to old patterns. While the ego has its job, it's also the biggest hurdle to self-discovery. The truth is, you're not stuck in one identity. You're a being in constant evolution. The moment you stop gripping onto who you think you are, you unlock endless possibilities. But how do you do it? How do you step past the self-illusion into the fullness of your existence? Jung laid out a path. It takes guts, deep self-checks, and a willingness to let go of everything you thought you knew about yourself. First, embrace the unknown. Most people dread the unknown because it's shaky ground. But that's where growth happens, where transformation kicks in. When you stop fighting the mysteries inside and lean into them with curiosity, you start seeing the world and yourself with fresh eyes. Second, drop the attachment to labels. You're not just your name, your job, your past, or your personality. You're something way beyond a definition. Letting go of those rigid identities opens room for something bigger to show up. Third, tune into the unconscious. Your dreams, instincts, deep gut feelings, they're not random. They're messages from the real you, guiding you to wholeness. The more you listen, the more you'll catch patterns, synchronicities, and signs pointing you to your true path. And finally, surrender to the process. Finding yourself isn't a finish line. It's not something you check off and move on from. It's an ongoing journey, peeling back deeper layers of truth. And here's the ultimate bombshell. You were never really lost. The self you've been chasing, the one speaking to you, has been inside all along, waiting to be remembered. So now, the call's yours. Will you keep living as a fragment of the real you, chained by old fears and illusions? Or will you step into the unknown, embracing the vast, limitless being you were meant to be? Because life doesn't truly start until you find yourself. And now, you know the way. Thanks for hanging out.